Hi everyone. Today markets went straight up for the S&Ps. You can see really just stair-stepping up nearly every single candle. And then we did get a little bit of selling action at the end of the session. That'll be interesting to see where that's coming from. And we'll take a look at the rest of the charts here. But in the short term, seems to be a pretty orderly stair-step higher. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Moving over to fear and greed, stepped up to a 43 from a 40 into neutral here for momentum as we get close to those all-time highs for the S&Ps, and then strength and breadth, still no changes. Still extreme fear on both of these despite them going a little bit higher each day. Honestly, a little bit surprised by that. Put call ratio pulling back into neutral, volatility in neutral. Safe haven demand stepping up into greed as stocks outperform a little bit in the short term. And then junk bonds really has not moved over the last couple of weeks. Quick reminder for seasonality, still a bullish seasonal period here. 22nd expected to be bullish, and you can see really since the 16th, a little bit earlier, 14th, it's supposed to be pretty much straight up until the 29th. So we're in this period, seems to be coming through at least a little bit. Moving over to earnings, P&G beat on both, J&J beat on both, Abbott Labs missed on the top line, met on the bottom. Travelers beat on both, you like to see that, pretty substantial beat. Sounds like there's a little bit more economic strength out there. You also got Discover beating on both, again, another consumer company doing pretty well. For tomorrow, GE Aerospace, McCormick, American Airlines, Alaska Airlines, want to see how those are doing. And the one that I forgot to mention for the Tuesday was United Airlines. They beat pretty substantially as well. So expecting these airline companies to do pretty well tomorrow. And if those continue to do well on the transport side, I think this is going to turn out to be a pretty good year. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps, gapped up and basically dojied. We hit the level here, and I did move it back down to 607.03. We'll look at it on the short time frames. There is a little bit of price action above that level, but for some reason it's not showing it on this chart. Says the high of the 6th is that 607.03 level. So that's what we're looking at here on the daily. Touched that level, pulled back from it. It's down a smidgen after hours after touching that. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish. If it gets above it, you can absolutely trade off of that level. Seems like potentially we could get above it again. You can see that short time frame here on the hourly. Got above it, rejected from there a little bit. Volume was on the selling candle on the last candle of the day. So far we've sold off a little bit from there. And then what I was talking about here is if you go back to this time period from about the 5th all the way through to the 11th, you can see several wicks above that level, but for some reason it doesn't show on my daily chart on the TradingView charts. So if you're using TradingView, just be aware of that. For some reason it's not populating on the daily chart. And then looking at that hourly price action, pretty much straight up at the same trend. The 9 EMA was holding basically the last 3 days, and then it broke right here at the end of the session. 21 is your dynamic support on the hourly, 605.52. And then if that breaks, you should expect to head back down to 603.25. Momentum short term, a little bit bearish. We were super overbought, got up to an 85.44 on the hourly chart for the RSI, and now we've pulled back down to a 62. I would expect this to pull back at least a little bit more. Realistically, what I would love to see, might be a little bit dramatic with how far we've moved, is a pullback, higher low setup here, somewhere around the 593, 594 area. Retest this kind of EMA structure in here, and then get a continuation higher from there where you would have a low, higher low in here, and then that could absolutely catapult you into some of these higher levels, maybe into the 620s, 630s potentially. So that's what I would like to see, but right now, if we do double top at this level, that would be a short-term reversal pattern, at least for me. Moving over to the Tasty charts just for a moment, you can see we were grinding along that upper ATR band, overthrew it here on the 10 o'clock candle, and then ended up pulling back from there. We're below the 8 EMA, so short-term, a little bit bearish. Your ATR trailing stop right now is 604.56. As long as that holds, you're still in bullish conditions on the hourly chart. And then looking at the 4-hour, just look at how extended you are. It makes sense that we're selling off at least a little bit. Your 8 EMA on the 4-hour is down at 604.41, so at least $1, $1.50 potential pullback. And then the other thing I wanted to go back here and highlight on the hourly chart is that volume here. You can see no volume in the mid session, big volume spikes, 2 times our vol there, and then 2.66 times volume on that last candle of the day, which resulted in some selling action. So when you see big volume spikes at a key point here, my expectation is that is going to be a little bit of a reversal in my opinion. Moving over to the Qs here, you can see we did get an update, 1.28%. Good move there. Gap was pretty aggressive on the after hours price action. We talked about it yesterday. It was moving pretty good. Didn't think it would be quite this aggressive, but the Trump news around the AI data centers that are going to be built in the United States pushed a little bit of these stocks higher. So pretty aggressive on that. And then you can see we came into that 533 level, rejected from there. That was a level we'd been watching, 533. 530 was a level in there, but pushed right through that. So that was your buy opportunity at 530, pushed right to the next level. That was the exit. And you can see it here on the hourly chart. Pretty clean cut move. Early in the session, pushed right through it here, right to the level. Exit price in here. Once you saw it start to reject on that 11 o'clock candle. And from there, it pretty much fell straight down, falling a little bit more after hours from that key level. 530 is your support. If that breaks down, next level is going to be 526.50. So we'll see. Right now, momentum is a little bit bearish. The charts are still pretty aggressive to the upside, so it wouldn't shock me if it did end up holding support in here at 530. Short term, a little bit bearish, watching for that key support. And then looking at the Qs here, you can see we got overbought conditions on those ATR bands. That upper band level, when we touched it, was sitting at 532.72 over through that level, and then we pulled back, which is pretty much where I exited my position. I did exit a little bit early, unfortunately. Oh well, either way, we ended up pulling back below it, so it was a good trade there. I did sell a little bit of calls here as we started to sell into it, so I made money on the calls, and that was a good move. Right now I'm flat though. I think this could pull back some more, but it wouldn't shock me to see it find some support potentially in the after hours today or pre-market tomorrow, and then we start to see one of those moves where you're kind of stuck in it with the options. So I didn't want to be short overnight because I do think that this could absolutely bottom and continue rallying, but for the short term, clearly below the 8, looking for that 21 EMA at 529.55. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell was actually negative on the day, the only one of the group that was negative, down 0.65, rejected from that 229.18 level. We talked about that potentially being a zone where it could reject, and it did. Basically flat after hours. It didn't sell as much in the after hours because it was kind of selling throughout the day. Your resistance was the 55 EMA. This is really the setup that I'm hoping for as well. So you can see pull back to the 21 EMA, about 2.5% lower. Hold that 21 EMA zone in here, higher low setup off of that, 222.70, 223, somewhere in here. Hold that 21 EMA, and then we kind of get that catapult style move off of that. That's really what I would like to see. Certainly possible we just pull back to 226, hold the level, continue, but I like those 21 EMA retest continuation style moves. They give you great entries, great risk reward, and they're usually pretty aggressive to the upside. So that's what I would like to see. We'll see. And then looking at the Dow, 441.43 was the level. We came right to it, touched that level, dojied on it, pulled back a little bit. Again, can't really get above it. Next level, we'll go ahead and add it here. At 445.16, that's the low of the day from the 3 December candle. That's where I would expect to go if this can break and hold. Right now, it hasn't done it. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple was just barely positive, about 0.5%, nearly touched the low from the previous day. Didn't quite get to the 217.62 level, but still has not broken above 224.36, so you're in the same trading range we've been in. Momentum starting to fade a little bit. Maybe you get a short-term bottom off of this same kind of zone here, and then you get a lower high setup continuation lower potentially. It's been kind of consolidating in the same range since mid-July, so I wouldn't expect anything crazy to happen, at least until we get below that 200. If it gets below the 200, that's going to be terrible for sure. And then looking at Microsoft, obviously had the huge catalyst of the Trump meeting late last night, pushing this higher. The big thing there was OpenAI was at the meeting, and obviously Microsoft owns part of OpenAI. And so Microsoft got the huge move here. So 4% higher. This is part of what was driving the NASDAQ higher, in my opinion. Huge gap higher, huge push through 440. Next level for me, 453.30. We'll see if it can go. Momentum's bullish, RSI bullish. Wouldn't get in the way of this. It is down a smidgen after hours, but these huge kind of catalysts with these big moves, I would be patient. Moving over to Tesla and NVDA. Tesla is down 2% on an up day. Interesting, they are underperforming. You do have a bit of a lower high setting up here now. It's back below the 21. If it breaks 414.50, I would expect this to go quite a bit lower with this high, lower high. Over through the structure a little bit, but momentum's back to bearish. Definitely going to be interesting there on Tesla. And then looking at NVIDIA here, big move higher on the day. Of course, data centers for AI is going to be a big driver for NVIDIA, and I'm sure they are going to participate in it. So I got a gap nearly to the level 144.42. If you traded off of that level, you're in good shape. Ended up rallying to 147, still looking for 149, and I do think that it will get there. Moving over to Amazon and Google. Amazon, big move there. Again, data center, very big mover for Amazon. It's one of their higher margin businesses, cloud services, all of that stuff incorporated into the AI trade. Good move. Also, we saw huge advertising numbers from Netflix, another major driver for Amazon, doing very, very well. Broke through your all-time high. Price discovery seems like it's set to go higher pretty substantially. And then looking at Alphabet, basically unchanged on the day, went up 40 cents, gave it back after hours. Missed the upper level, seems to be pulling back. Momentum is still a little bit bullish. RSI kind of neutralized here, still cannot get above these trend structures. Really no change to the thesis. I think we're going to just continue to kind of either hover here or eventually break down from this key resistance. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, both of these were actually down on the day. Interesting. Staples came into that 21 EMA. We talked about that being potentially resistance. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish, but we broke back below 77.50. So if you were in this trade from the trend to here, probably stopped out of that position, at least based on my rules, you would be. And then looking at discretionaries, pulled back to the trend here. Right now it's holding, after hours down a smidgen. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish. So as long as the trend holds, then you're looking for a push to this next structure up here. But if it breaks down from here, then you're looking for a push probably back at least to these most relative lows. This structure looks very similar to the Tesla with this kind of topping pattern, lower high setting up. If it breaks down below these structures here, look out below because this is probably headed into the 215, 210 area for that lower low setup. Moving over to breadth, we saw a little bit of a step down on breadth. We haven't seen that for a couple of days here, a couple of weeks actually. Down about 7% on the 20-day. We said we were peaking in this range here between 75 and 85, 86.50, somewhere in there, but we got a step down now. Interesting. We'll see if that continues to carry through tomorrow or not. Same here on 50-day. Seems like we're getting a little bit of a lower high at that 52.81 area, step down to 47. Momentum didn't go with it yet, but RSI pulling back a little bit. We'll see what it does here over the next day or two, but watching this critically now as it starts to pull back at least a little bit. Moving over to the dollar, you can see the dollar did end up catching a bounce off of that level. It overthrew it pretty substantially. The low was around 107.7 or so, 107.4, and then we ended up bouncing back above 108, so looks like a little bit of a bottoming pattern off of this kind of big down leg, test the level a couple times. Momentum still kind of flat. Like I said, the structure is still very much bullish. Talked about it yesterday. And you can absolutely see that here in the hourly chart pushing towards that 55 EMA. This does look like a topping pattern, but these topping patterns can take a couple of weeks to kind of culminate, especially on the dollar. The dollar really does take a long time to generate these patterns and start to change structure if it's going to do it. You can see here we got into this range on the 13th of November and we didn't push out of there until the 12th of December. So about a month in this range makes sense. And we did get here 18 December and we are still here 22 January. So basically unchanged for about a month. We'll see if this continues to kind of sell from here. I think that it might. It is super extended, but for now, I wouldn't be short, at least until we get a close below 108. Moving over to bonds. Bonds did pull back a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little. 0.17 on J&K, still above 96.50. TLT pulling back a little bit as well, 0.5% or so. I still think the low is probably in here. Wouldn't shock me to pull back a little bit more, maybe touch the 9 at 86.52, maybe the level 85.90, but I would guess that the low here is going to be that 14 January candle. So you can kind of trade off of that range. Like I said, 85.90 is still a level, but the low here from the 14 January candle was 84.89. And I think that's probably going to be the relative low, in my opinion. Moving over to volatility, you can see volatility did end up bouncing a little bit on the day, went to that 14.7 level, ended up about 6 cents. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, but 14.7 continues to be an important level. It's been important for the last several months, several years realistically. We've been watching that level, and we came into it again here today. And it seems like we're going to get a little bit of a bounce from there, in my opinion. Moving over to my accounts, I managed to get back into the green, so that's good. You like to see it. Been a bit of a upswing, downswing kind of month for me, a little bit frustrating, but back into the green, off to an okay start for the year. Want to see that continue, obviously. In terms of positions, I was along the Qs, held that rally through most of the day, took it off there towards the end of the session. I was holding some short calls, which ended up being pretty good there as well. Overall, like I said, I think the Qs are probably going to go lower, but I was hesitant to be short into the end of the session and into the pre-market tomorrow. And then for the Russell, I rolled this down here to 228 for tomorrow for a $1.30 credit. That's in a little bit of a profit, helped to mitigate these losses here. So it was down $1.50, only ended up losing about 60 there. And I'm hoping we can kind of hold in this range for tomorrow. The breadth is starting to fade, so there's certainly a potential that I take this off. But for right now, this is where I'm at. A relatively conservative position. You can see I'm already in the money with that covered call. If we get a rally, make about $1 tomorrow, that would be great. Also, if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. I'm going to start posting these here on Patreon. Have a Patreon member who's in my Discord chat. If you want to check that out, go over to Patreon. Otherwise, if you just want the ad-free version of these, I'll start posting these over there as well. So check that out. I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Let me know what you thought of the markets down in the comments section. And make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.